Shall we begin?
Let's begin now. Let's begin now.
This is not a drill.
Repeat, this is not a drill.
Is that all you got?
Let's begin now.
What up? Oh, for sure.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're all well. Hello to everybody in the chat. Hello Kathy, hello Titch. Hello to everybody on hi Glenn Keane. Hi to everybody on TikTok as well. I'm live on multiple platforms today. I want to talk about just the one story really that needs to be talked about as much as possible to try and explain to you that you're not getting the full story on certain main issues that all of the media are talking about at the moment, and they're pretty much lying about it all and propagandizing you, etc. Hi Dominic, how are you? Just a quick talk about something I touched on in the last video, the last time I went live. Whenever I go live in future, you'll be able to watch me live for free, of course, but if you want to watch the replay of the live show, I think probably after the end of, what we're in April, at the beginning of May, it's going to be, I would have thought, it's going to go behind a paywall. My website's getting totally rejigged. I'm going to have a membership site on the website as well, because it's clear that I can't talk to you openly and honestly on the platforms that I'm on. So I'm going to have to be very careful about what I say in this stream as well. I'll explain where I am being cautious in my wording, shall we say. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Isn't it ridiculous that I'm having to regulate my speech just because I might tell you something that's true that may, you know, cause you to riot, I suppose. I don't know. But they're banning the truth, aren't they? How ridiculous is it? But yeah, I'll be going behind a membership site on my website. It's literally because I had another eviction notice this week. I'm not going to get evicted. I've sorted it out, but this is the situation we're all in, isn't it? You know, while Rishi Sunak and his friends are all making a fortune, you know, and his wife's making a fortune off her nom-dom status and obviously dodging tax left, right and centre, you and I are paying through the nose for fuel, for heating, for all sorts. We were already on the breadline and now everything's got 40% dearer. We're the ones who are going to be in the trouble here. And it's all because they have lied to us systematically about pretty much everything over the last 4 or 5 years. Don't want to get into it too much. I want to get straight on to the first story, really, I want to talk about. Because right now, obviously, Ukraine... Start recording this. I'll stop this as a standalone video. So right now, over in Ukraine... we don't know what the hell's going on, but obviously there's a war over there, and war is hell. And innocent people are dying, and there's nobody really on the ground over there that we can trust to give us any information, really, with facts, etc., something accurate that we can go on. All of the reports coming from there in our legacy media are all saying that there's war crimes going on over there, aren't they? And they're all saying that there's war crimes happening. Now, there's a war, so there's a good chance that there's war crimes going on. My whole argument is war crimes happen wherever there's a war. Why aren't we looking at our past war crimes before we start pointing fingers? But I don't want to get too much into that in this video. I've done that before. But what is interesting is all of our media at the moment are trying desperately to construct a narrative, aren't they, that Russia are at fault here for these war crimes, and it's only Russia that are at fault. And you see calls for an investigation from many people saying, oh, we need an investigation. But the trouble is, who's going to actually lead that investigation? And how do we know that the people leading that investigation can be trusted? And this is a serious question, because historically, whenever you get stuff like this, when the media are all pointing the fingers in one direction, anything that goes against that narrative gets squashed, doesn't it? And the media don't talk about that. And you only get half the story. And as I've talked about before, if you only tell the second half or bits of the Cinderella story, then you could pretty much present Prince Charming as being a weirdo with a foot fetish who's going around the kingdom messing about with everybody's feet, you know? Especially if you hide certain information and just present certain points of information along the way. And this is what I feel is being done and has been done historically. There's been no investigation, independent investigation into what's going on over in Ukraine right now. However, anything that seemingly comes out of Ukraine that is looked bad towards the Russians, we're immediately led to believe that and disbelieve anything that comes out that might, paint the Ukrainians in a bad light. Nothing seemingly over the last few weeks has been true. There's been hundreds of instances of stuff that's gone viral on Facebook or, social media, or even in the media, that has been debunked. There was this one, footage of a plane under fire was from a video game, not Ukraine. This had millions, 2.5 million times it had been viewed on Facebook. And it was false. It was from a video game. So you've got to be very careful. Who do you believe? Stories coming out of there, they need to be corroborated, don't they? And if stories that we've had come out of that area over the last 6 weeks or so have been false, then we're going to have to be very careful about how we interpret any information that's given us, especially considering what has happened over the last, few years. Let's remember, over the last few weeks, for instance, the media, and when I say talk about the media here, I talk about the legacy media, the old media, have admitted their reporting in the last few years on massive stories has been flawed and has relied too much on what they call intelligence that hasn't been corroborated, meaning they're taking stuff that from the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, etc., and they're just repeating it as fact. And you're seeing it play out in real time with real stories such as this. You've got the Hunter Biden laptop story now. This was totally suppressed before the election, remember? Thousands, gigabytes of data on there pointing to him having very questionable deals. Like I say, I have to be careful on my wording here, in Ukraine. Why is this guy in Ukraine on a board at an energy company getting $1 million a year? The president's son or vice president's son at that time. But this story, it was squashed, wasn't it? Because it was bad for Joe Biden. Basically, that's all it was. 51 intelligence officials came out and said, this is a false story. It's Russian disinformation. No, it was true. It's real. Not only are the New York Post coming out and crowing and saying, no, our reporting was factual, but the Washington Post themselves are saying the Hunter Biden story is an opportunity for a reckoning. Remember, they were the ones who said that this was a Russian disinformation. They're the ones who spread the lie that it was Russian disinformation when it was all true. Now, I just want to quickly go down to the bottom of this article and read the last two paragraphs here. This is the Washington Post's own reporting on the Hunter Biden stuff. The series of events that led to, obviously, the laptop story being covered up before the election has prompted allegations of a cover-up, or at best a double standard in the treatment of conservative and liberal politicians by mainstream media and social media sites. Yet there was reason in the case for reluctance on the part of publications and the platforms alike. Yes, the reason was 51 intelligence people signed a letter without any evidence whatsoever to say that it was Russian disinformation, and you took that and you printed it as if it was fact, just like you do with every other story, and you're doing it even now. Even after you've done this, you've printed a retraction almost and said you were wrong to suppress that. You're still doing it, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. It goes on to say, both had been the unwitting tools of a Russian influence campaign in 2016, and it was only prudent to suspect a similar plot lay behind the mysterious appearance of a computer stuffed with juicy documents and conveniently handed over to President Donald Trump's toxic personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. So they're immediately saying, no, we don't, we disbelieve it. He's a toxic guy. So you're arbitrarily deciding what's true and false here based on whether you like the guy or not? Indeed, at the time, there was also an ongoing disinformation operation from Moscow involving, among other things, doctored recordings supposedly showing Joe Biden improperly pressuring the then president of Ukraine to add Hunter Biden's business interests, a fraud promoted by Mr. Giuliani. Yes, but that's maybe just one thing. What about all the other stuff in the laptop that you just blew by? The context doesn't necessarily exonerate every action of every publication on platform. It doesn't exonerate them at all, mate. It makes obvious sense for newspapers to wait to verify information before turning it into a story. Do you hear that? This is the Washington Post. Just, a few weeks ago. This is April the 3rd, so this is in the last 4 days. They're saying here, yeah, we've got to be careful about what we promote as a story. We need to wait to verify information here. Well, what are they doing right now, the media? They're all clamouring to say that there's war crimes going on in Ukraine and it's Russia's fault. The harder conundrum is what to do with true information that comes from a hack. Really? This didn't come from the hack. This Hunter Biden laptop didn't come from a hack. It came from a repair shop. Do you see how even when they're trying to apologise for making a mistake in their reporting, they're making excuses that bear no resemblance as to where that laptop came from. And harder still is how to treat true information that hasn't been stolen but has been selectively shared to further an agenda. Everything that you get selectively shared at a media outlet is promoting or furthering an agenda. It doesn't matter whether it's Trump's agenda or Biden's agenda or Republican or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's furthering an agenda. Unless somebody's giving you all the information and they're going, you look through all of it and decide for yourself. Correct? Social media sites face a tougher choice when it comes to whether and how to dampen the spread of a story when they're unsure of its truthfulness or origins. None of these dilemmas have easy answers, they say. The lesson learned from 2016 was evidently to err on the side of setting aside questionable material in the heat of a political campaign. The lesson learned from 2020 may well be that there's also a danger of suppressing accurate and relevant stories. So they're saying there's a danger of not talking about stuff that's true because it contradicts the narrative that they're trying to spin, and also a danger of suppressing stuff that's true and promoting stuff that isn't true just because it furthers whatever intelligence agency is giving that information. I hope that makes sense. So they're doing this at the same. They've apologised for massive stories that they've got wrong that honestly had wider implications, because let's face it, this was right before the election and it was a close election. But they do go on in that, even in this article, there is the Washington Post basically saying there's a reckoning here in the media. They even say, there was a Russian disinformation campaign at this time. Well, really? Well, the Washington Post has corrected and removed giant parts of 2 stories regarding the Steele dossier as well. So this article, which says that, remember, there was a Russian disinformation program going on, they're admitting in another article that, we promoted parts of that, which was false as well. Isn't this strange, isn't it? Every time they either promote a false story or squash a true story, it benefits the establishment. Have you noticed that? It benefits Biden. When I say the establishment, I mean specifically the Democratic establishment, although there's really no difference between the Democratic and Republican parties. I've said that before. Large parts of this story they've had to retract. This is a story that won Pulitzer Prizes. Some of these stories that they published, the Washington Post, the New York Times, won Pulitzer Prizes, and they were based on bullshit. Total and utter bullcrap. So, they've apologised for a story that they suppressed that was true. They've apologised for stories that they've promoted as true, which have turned out to be false, and they've done all this just in the last few months. Okay? But at the same time, They're telling us that right now, over in Ukraine, there's war crimes going on, and it must be Russia that are doing them. Well, this is a story in the last few weeks that came out. Do you remember this? That Russia was going to use chemical weapons, was about to use chemical weapons. Do you remember? This is like last couple of weeks. And I've done the story on biolabs, which TikTok took down and banned me for. Let's talk about that. And we've done the story of how Hunter Biden's firm was funding Metabiota, I think it was, which was one of the companies that was funding this work in these biolabs in Ukraine. Well, at that time, and the whole Victoria Nuland thing came out, well, I mean, there's chemical weapons over there, maybe. So, if there was to be a attack, it must be Russia that did it. Do you remember Victoria Nuland saying, I'm 100% certain that if it came, if there was to be a chemical weapons attack, it would be Russia that did it? Well, here's an article in NBC that is basically admitting that, yeah, that was based in total rubbish, that story. They're admitting it here. They're doing it in a very roundabout way, but trust me, they're admitting that that story, the whole Russia is going to use a chemical weapons thing in eastern Ukraine, was based on rubbish. This is from NBC News. In a break with the past, the United States is using intelligence to fight an information war with Russia, even when the intelligence isn't rock solid. So let me decipher that for you. That means we're promoting stories as true because it benefits America, it's bad for Russia, and it doesn't matter whether the stories are based on intelligence that is false. So they're admitting here that they're printing stories that are false. It doesn't have to be solid intelligence, one US official said. Now, this article is kind of funny because it's trying to paper over the fact that it's admitting they're using BS intelligence to write their articles. And it's written by Ken Delanian, who's one of the authors. And I seem to remember Ken Delanian was fired from the New York Times because he was basically on the books at the CIA. Basically a CIA informant. And here he is at NBC writing an article on, I know we're writing articles based on BS. But hey, we're doing it for the... You'll see. It starts off with this. It was an attention-grabbing assertion that made headlines around the world. US officials said they had indications suggesting Russia might be preparing to use chemical agents in Ukraine. Is that one of the stories it links to? There's one of the stories. There's a Washington Post. Look, intelligence points to heightened risk of Russian chemical attack in Ukraine, officials say. They always add that, don't they? Officials say. That means that they've got no concrete information. They're just repeating propaganda that the NSA or CIA have told them. That's basically what. President Joe Biden later said it publicly. So the president even said it, probably citing the media reports. It's all circular. You give a leak. You give a leak that they're going to use chemical weapons. They publish it. The media publish it. And then the president cites the media as the sources, so it must be true. Like a circular jerk-off. President Biden later said it publicly, but 3 US officials told NBC News this week there is no evidence Russia has brought any chemical weapons near Ukraine. They said the US released the information to deter Russia from using the banned munitions. Now, if that paragraph I've just read you sounds a little bit strange, it's like, what? That's a little bit convoluted. Then it is. President Biden later said it publicly. So Biden, the media said Russia was going to use chemical weapons in Ukraine. Biden then said it publicly. But 3 US officials told NBC News there was no evidence it was going to have no evidence that Russia had brought any weapons into Ukraine. Okay? 3 officials said there's no evidence that they've even brought chemical weapons into Ukraine. But then the next line is they said the US released the information to deter Russia from using the banned munitions. How can Russia use banned munitions if it hasn't brought any of those banned munitions into Ukraine? How can Russia use banned munitions if by your own admission they haven't brought them into Ukraine? Now, the reason why I know we're talking about these war crimes over in Ukraine at the moment, but the reason I'm showing you all these other stories is I'm showing you a pattern of them lying to you. Not to Russia, not lying to Vladimir Putin, lying to you and lying to me. This is not a disinformation campaign on Russia. Okay? They are not waging a misinformation campaign in the UK and US at the moment on Russia. No. They're waging a misinformation and disinformation campaign on you. On you and you and me. And I'm showing you I'm showing you instances of them doing it. I've shown you instances of them lying time after time after time after time. I'm showing you instances of them taking intelligence statements from officials that have lied consistently their entire careers and promoting them as fact. And then other stories, such as the Hunter Biden laptop, which are factual, suppressing them because it looks bad. That's not what a media is supposed to do. A media is supposed to hold power accountable. In a democracy, that's what it's doing. That sort of thing is what we say Russia and China and North Korea do to their people. This is psychological warfare on their own populations. And you have to ask why. And right now they're over in Ukraine saying that there's war crimes. And who's over there saying they're war crimes? Who is over there doing the investigations? Like I said, there's no independent investigation at the moment. There is an investigation. It's being done by these guys. A group called Bellingcat. I've done lots of videos on Bellingcat. I've mentioned them lots of times on my YouTube channel. Just go to my YouTube channel, go to my page, search my videos for Douma. Do you remember the chemical weapons attack, supposedly, in Syria? The narrative was just at the point where Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, was about to win the war against the rebels. He did a chemical weapons attack on his own people, making sure that powers much larger than he come in and crush him. Right at the point where he won the war. Dodgy as hell straight away. Straight away, anybody with half a brain in their head would go, hold on a minute, that doesn't make sense. Why would somebody do that? Right at that time? Why would they do that? Well, I did lots of reporting on it. And Bellingcat came up time and time again. Bellingcat are funded. Well, I mean, they say that half of them when it comes from workshops, and then the other half of them when it comes from non-governmental organisations, basically the National Endowment for Democracy and company and cutouts like that, which, as we know, the National Endowment for Democracy is basically just a cutout for the CIA. It does overtly now what the CIA used to do covertly. That's the National Endowment for Democracy. It's all about, well, information warfare. Let's face it, that's what they do. Now, I covered this a lot at the time, the Douma investigation. Now, the reason I talked about Bellingcat at the time was because you may remember that we bombed Syria on the back of those findings. Yes, the open sources that were used to bomb Syria. Remember Theresa May's statement? I tried to find this video, by the way, and I couldn't find it on my computer. But here it is. Here's her speech in the House of Commons. She said, and this is the justification she used for us bombing Syria. Remember, the France, UK, and America bombed Syria after that attack. By the way, this is just a few weeks after Julian Assange his internet was cut at the embassy. So they shut Julian Assange up as well whilst this was happening. Does that sound dodgy or what? She said this, we are clear about who is responsible. A significant body of information, including intelligence, indicates that the Syrian regime is responsible for this latest attack. Open source accounts state that barrel bombs were used to deliver the chemicals. Okay, the open sources that they were stating there were Bellingcat. They were doing the work on it. Right now, over in Ukraine, this is Bellingcat are in there trying to come up with all sorts of ways to blame Russia. That's not what they're not trying to get to the truth of anything. They're just trying to find ways of blaming Russia. Same as they did with Assad, same as they did with Syria. That's what they're charged to do. I'm telling you, that is the facts of the matter. If any information goes against a narrative that Russia was responsible for it, they will leave it out of their reports. And I know that because they did it with the Douma stuff. Now remember, what's going on over at Syria at the moment is coming at the same time as there's a massive clampdown in free speech on social media. On Twitter, I think on YouTube as well. And I'm not suggesting this, by the way, just before somebody takes me down. They're banning any talk that this was a false flag, basically. So I'm not going to talk about it. All right? I'm going to talk about the previous one in Syria that Bellingcat said was Assad. I'm going to discredit their work previously, therefore their work now should bear no weight. Right now on Twitter, they've banned Scott Ritter. They banned him. Scott Ritter, by the way, is the former Marine Corps intelligence officer who was, I think he was he part of the team over their weapons of mass destruction? I seem to remember that. But the New York Times just released an article about how Twitter will be cracking down on any dissent on Russia-Ukraine. And they banned Scott Ritter almost immediately afterwards for something that he said. Here's what he said. I'm not even sure whether I can read this out without my account being taken down, but that is what he said. But if you can see there, he's not saying that a crime didn't take place. What he's suggesting is it might not be Russia that committed the crime. That's a reasonable stance to take, isn't it? He got banned for it. Twitter took him down. So think about it. In the past, they've squashed articles. They've squashed reporting on anything that might paint Biden or the Democratic establishment or power in a bad light. They've promoted articles. They've promoted articles knowing that the intelligence was false and then apologised for it. Twitter, remember, at the time of this article, totally locked the New York Post out of their Twitter account. And this ended up being totally factually correct. And they're doing it again now. Banning people who were not even questioning that a war crime took place. He's saying that probably one did. He's just not convinced yet it's Russians who committed it. Or just Russians. He didn't even say it wasn't Russia. And they banned his Twitter account. How is that fair? And what does that say to you? That these tech companies and the media are actually trying to give you correct information. They're not, are they? They're suppressing information and banning people who are telling the truth and then promoting stuff that is lies None of those lies that were promoted back then, nobody lost their account over it. Twitter didn't go back and retroactively give them a ban for pushing full stories. No, of course not. They got away with it scot-free. But the people who question any narrative whatsoever, they're the problem here. Get them out of here. So all of that is happening right at the time where these propagandists for hire are now searching through videos of stuff in Ukraine, trying to come up with any instances that they can where they can pick and choose information that proves Russia were behind war crimes and not Ukraine. That's what they're doing. Why do I know this? Because that is what they've done before. This was from the 16th of May 2019. The OPCW confirmed that the Douma report, which was leaked, which was leaked by, I think, Ian Henderson, his report was genuine. This report cast a massive cloud over the narrative that it was Assad that dropped these barrel bombs in Douma. I and many other people covered lots of information back then that suggested it wasn't Assad. There was great reporting by a guy called Robert Fisk in The Independent. You may remember there was this scene in the hospital that showed children who were having... see if we can get to it. They were showing children... Here we go. So this was the scene. It was showing children in a hospital that were having water poured all over them by a group called the White Helmet. The White Helmets I've covered are a Western cutout. They're not an ambulance service like they're made out. They're basically going over there to protect the Western investments into these rebel groups that were fighting Assad. In other words, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, Jaish al-Islam, terrorists that we were propping up in Syria. Oh yeah, we were doing that. So there was this video, you may remember, and this was the video that was shown that was meant to be, proof that all of these people in that film were the victims of sarin attacks. I think it was chlorine. They said it was. Bear me a second. I'm having problems with my frigging computer. They left out from the reporting at the time. Everything was lots of stuff was left out of the reporting in the media at the time on Douma. There was a Robert Fisk reporting that said basically anybody in the video that was having water poured on their heads, they weren't suffering from a chemical weapons attack. What they were suffering from was hypoxia, dust inhalation. The area in Douma at the time was being bombed consistently by Assad. There were rebels there, and the civilians in the area were hiding in tunnels underneath the city, and it brought up dust, and that's what they were in hospital. That's why they were coughing in the hospital. And there was a BBC producer called Riam Dalati who did this tweet. After almost 6 months of investigations, I can prove without a doubt that the Douma hospital scene was staged. No fatalities occurred in the hospital. All the White Helmets, activists and people I spoke to are either in Idlib or Euphrates Shield area. Only one person was in Damascus. So this is a BBC Syria producer, Riam Dalati, basically saying, yeah, that scene was fake. It was faked. Suppressed. Media totally ignored it. The guy ended up restricting his account. So You couldn't see what tweets he was doing next. There was a BBC... Bear me a second, my computer's really messing me up here. God damn it. Come on! So, you may also remember this is from my video back then. There was a massive group, I think there were 18 members of the video that you might remember of that alleged chemical attack or the aftermath on it. There's 18 members of Syria that went to The Hague to testify what I've just told you, that it was dust inhalation. They also testified that the White Helmets gave them biscuits and what have you afterwards for their unwitting part in the theatre that they created to try and point the blame on Assad for this chemical weapons attack. It was dodgy as hell. My computer's really messing up. I'm sorry, everybody. I've got a massive problem here with my computer. Not only were there massive inconsistencies at the time on the reporting in Douma with regards to that staged event in the hospital that was used, you know, obviously the visual stuff, the kids suffering from what they said was chlorine poisoning, you know, tugged at the heartstrings. Now, there were people who were killed. There were dead bodies in that attack. They said it was a chlorine attack. But I've had on my podcast Dr. Piers Robinson, who is part of the working group for Syria propaganda in media. And they ripped apart the report from Bellingcat and the New York Times. And he was explaining to me how there's several inconsistencies with regards to reporting, with regards to the canister just ending up on the bed in the picture. I've got a problem with my computer, otherwise I could show you that picture, but you probably remember it. There's a picture of a canister on the bed, you know, with a guy in a gas mask. It was obviously a false flag. I mean, you could see the way it was staged, but, you know, no canister is going to fall through a concrete reinforced steel roof, make less of a hole, make a smaller hole than would be needed for it to fit through, hit the floor, bounce, land gently on the bed and have no, damage to the casing or anything like that. There was a massive inconsistency there. And then there was also the inconsistency of the dead bodies. There was no evidence whatsoever of any person in the supposed chemical weapons attack surviving. This was meant to be a chlorine attack. Americans said it was sarin to begin with, by the way. Then they changed to chlorine. But chlorine only kills, I think, a maximum in historical times it's been used of 15% of people when it's been dropped in an open area like that. Because obviously it's an open area. And there's no signs of any of the victims of anybody trying to run. I mean, can you imagine a chemical weapon's just gone off? Everybody's coughing and spluttering. You would be running out. There's no evidence whatsoever that anybody ran away. And everybody died. 100% fatality rate. Something's really dodgy. There's obviously been people died from chemical weapons. I think that's fair to say. Certainly people died from some kind of attack. That's fair to say. But who did it? It certainly wasn't as Bellingcat described it to be. And they, right now, are the chief people that our governments, the NED-funded Bellingcat, are using to basically say that, yeah, Russia have done war crimes. Do you think that's right? Do you think that's the way, journalism should be done and the way we should decide whether a war crime has happened? I want to remind you something. That attack in Douma, it's not just been discredited from, the reporting that I just told you about the white helmets and about, the inconsistencies in how many people were killed and all the stuff that Dr. Piers Robinson told me, but also there's all the whistleblowers as well and all the documents that we know that have been found, that WikiLeaks exposed, that WikiLeaks dropped, as well as other organisations, but WikiLeaks was one of them, that proved that it was a massive cover-up of the OPCW. Where's Julian Assange right now, by the way? Where is he? Oh yeah, that's right. He was silenced in the Ecuadorian embassy just before this happened, and about a week after it happened, he was dragged out of the embassy in that act of fascism. This is the last large document dump that WikiLeaks dropped. I'm just going to read you their findings, okay? This is from that Douma attack that Bellingcat said was unequivocally must have been Assad that did it. Today, this is 27th of December 2019. Today, WikiLeaks releases more internal documents from the OPCW regarding the investigation into an alleged chemical attack in Douma in April 2018. One of the documents is an email exchange dated 27th and 28th February. All these documents are here. You can go and see them. Just type in WikiLeaks Douma. You'll find them yourself from Google. One of the documents is an email exchange dated 27th and 28th of February between members of the fact-finding mission, called an FFM in those documents, deployed in Douma and the senior officials of the OPCW. It includes an email from Sebastian Braha. He's the chief of cabinet at the OPCW, where he instructs that an engineering report from Ian Henderson should be removed from the secure registry at the organisation. What that means is that's the OPCW chief saying this report from a guy called Ian Henderson, who I think has been at the OPCW for 18 years and he's one of the senior engineers there, if I'm right in saying that. In 18 years, they are literally saying, yeah, you've got to make this report disappear. What was in that report? Well, what was in that report was stuff that basically said it wasn't Assad that did it. It wasn't a chemical weapons attack. It was stuff that flew in the face of Bellingcat's findings. There's the quote from it. The main finding of Henderson, who inspected the sites in Douma and two cylinders that were found on the site of the alleged attack, was that they were more likely manually placed there than dropped from a plane or helicopter from considerable height. His findings were omitted from the official final OPCW report on the Douma incident. As I'm not going to So his report states that, yeah, that canister that you're saying came through the concrete steel reinforced ceiling, dropped from a helicopter, went straight through that concrete reinforced ceiling, the hole that was smaller than the canister, but somehow the canister got through it, bounced on the concrete, didn't go through that concrete, no, just through the one concrete, and then gently landed on the bed with no damage whatsoever to it. He basically said this is just impossible. That was squashed. That's evidence that basically says it goes against that it was Assad who did this. It goes against that it was a chemical weapons attack in that building at that time, doesn't it? It actually points towards, I would say, a fabrication of some sort, doesn't it? That's certainly what he's saying there. More likely manually placed than dropped from a plane or helicopter. That's not what the report said, though, was it? The report said it came from a helicopter. That's lies, isn't it? Another document released today is minutes from a meeting on the 6th of June 2018, where 4 staff members at the OPCW had discussions with 3 toxicologists, clinical pharmacologists, 1 bioanalytical and toxicological chemist, all specialists in chemical weapons according to the minutes. The purpose of the meeting was twofold. The first objective was to solicit expert advice on the value of exhuming suspected victims of the alleged chemical attack in Douma. According to the minutes, the OPCW team was advised by the experts that there would be little use in conducting exhumations. The second point was to elicit expert opinions from forensic toxicologists regarding the observed and reported symptoms of the alleged victims. More specifically, whether the symptoms observed in the victims were consistent with exposure to chlorine or other reactive chlorine gas. I've already said to you there are questions with regards to why this alleged chemical weapons attack killed everybody, why there was no evidence of anybody running away. I've already spoke about that, but this is something else. According to the minutes leaked today, with respect to the consistency of the observed and the reported symptoms of the alleged victims with possible exposure to chlorine gas or similar, the experts were conclusive in their statements that there was no correlation between symptoms and chlorine exposure. None. This is the OPCW's own documents. By the way, the OPCW, because so many people were responding to their Twitter, every tweet that they made with what's going on here, they just turned the comments off. You can't comment on OPCW threads now on Twitter. That's how they dealt with it. Just ignored people who were telling the truth and asking questions. The OPCW team members wrote the key, quote, takeaway message from the meeting was, quote, that the symptoms observed were inconsistent with exposure to chlorine and no other obvious candidate chemical causing the symptoms could be identified. So the OPCW experts in their own meetings are having discussions where at the end of it, the findings are, yeah, this wasn't a chlorine attack. Yet that's the narrative that we had and the reason for bombing Syria. At the time, me and other people were like, whoa, this is absolute nuts. This is nonsense. What's going on? The white helmets are not to be trusted. The white helmets are a propaganda construct. They're there to do the bidding for war. And what's happened? Well, yeah, they were funded by the UK, US, Holland, millions and millions of pounds. They were embedded in Syria, next door to Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, Jaish al-Islam, next door to them, working hand in hand with the terrorists to try and overthrow Assad. And we're funding them. We're funding the terrorists' hospital ambulance service. And we're calling them some saintly organisation. Well, first of all, they're not Syrian. The white helmets who filmed those scenes were actually formed in Turkey by a guy called James Le Mesurier, who was an ex-MI6 guy. Or was, rather, because after all this came out, about a year later, he fell out of a window and died. Coinkydink? The third document is a copy. Yeah, we're not done yet. We're not done ripping apart Bellingcat's bollocks. The third document is a copy of the OPCW email exchanges from 20 to 28th of August 2018, discussing the meeting with toxicologists. The fourth document is an email exchange the end of July where it is stated that the 8 OPCW inspectors deployed to Douma during the fact-finding mission, except one, a paramedic, should be excluded from discussions on the project. Why is that? Why? Why would you exclude the 7 members, apart from the paramedic, the other 7 members who were actually there on the ground in Douma? And by the way, why there was a delay in them getting to Douma, wasn't there? Do you remember? There was a delay in the fact-finding mission getting to Douma. Why? Because they bombed it. They bombed Syria. There's more documents on the 14th of December, Reese, showing internal disagreement within the OPCW about how facts were misrepresented in a redacted version of a report on an alleged chemical attack in Douma. Amongst these is a memorandum written by protest amongst these, get this, amongst these documents was a memo written in protest by one of the scientists sent on the fact-finding mission to investigate the attack. So one of the guys that went to Douma wrote a protest memo dated the 14th of March, addressed to Fernando Arias, who was Director General of the organisation. He's the guy at the very top. And it was exactly 2 weeks after the organisation published its final report. And he's there. This is ridiculous. This is nothing close to what we found on the ground. In fact, the evidence they took and the people that they mentioned in the report were mostly stationed in Turkey. They never actually went to Douma. That was the big chemical weapons thing of 2018. That wasn't. The media, all at the time, are all in unison to say that is a chemical weapons attack by Assad, and if you say anything else, you're a Putin puppet or an Assad toady. It doesn't matter what the truth is, we will smear you as a Putin puppet or an Assad toady. Well, I've got something to say about that. You see, the thing is, there's a reason I do what I do. It's actually on my YouTube. It's the sorry, my computer's really messed up. It's actually the video that is highlighted when you go to my channel on YouTube. Look at that handsome devil. Oh, you can't see that. I've got a picture of me behind me. You can't see it on TikTok, but I want to just show you. This is the trailer for my video on a trailer for my YouTube channel. And this is the video. It's been a couple of years. This is why I do this. And it will perfectly highlight just all the bollocks and all the bullshit that I've just highlighted and why I do what I do. They're lying to you, the media are. This is a misinformation, a disinformation campaign on their own population. Is engaged in a... We only have... I am doing this right now because our media is engaged in a disinformation campaign on its own people. And in my mind, that's treasonous. Now, whether you want Brexit or not, and whatever the reason for it, our democracy and our sovereignty do not depend upon it. Or human rights. They've suspended those rights already. Weren't you listening when he was dragged out of his asylum in that act of fascism on home soil just a few months ago? He wasn't shouting, "I'm innocent." He wasn't shouting, "I'm not a rapist." He was shouting, the UK has no sovereignty. The UK must resist. Who dropped the documents proving the OPCW cover-up in Douma? And who's their publisher? And where is he now? And that's why I do this. To resist. Because our media are not. They are merely establishment and national security state PR at this point. And it's disgusting. In his letter to me, Julian Assange said, "Until I am free, everyone else must take my place." And that's why I do this. I am Julian Assange. And I do this because our media are fake news. That's why. And see, whenever I've got something, I understand that everybody makes mistakes, okay? I understand that nobody's perfect. I understand that I am going to make mistakes. I'm going to get things wrong. But when I have done, go back and look. Whenever I've made a mistake, and I've found out that I've made a mistake. I've gone back and I've apologised for it and I've corrected the record. Has the media corrected the record on Russiagate? Have they corrected the record on the Hunter Biden thing? Have they corrected the record on pretty much anything that they have got wrong over the last 5-6 years? No, of course not. And when Bellingcat got that story, that information in Douma so wrong back in 2018, when they published information open source, when they basically left stuff out and they ignored stuff that pointed to this actually being some sort of false flag operation, what did they do? Did they afterwards, when the OPCW whistleblowers come out and basically prove that all their stuff was rubbish, did they say, I'm really sorry for that? No, they didn't. Instead, they smeared all the people that did get it right. Doesn't this just prove how untrustworthy they are? In that they got Douma so wrong, their open source material, which was used to bomb it, was so wrong. It's been proved that they got loads of stuff so wrong. It's been proved that they, just ignored large pieces of information that went against their narrative. And what did they do? Did they fess up and say, yeah, we're really sorry about that. We're sorry. This is why we got things wrong. We're not going to do it again. No. They smeared the journalists and the activists who got it right. There's an award called the Serena Shim Award. Look, they even mentioned there YouTube personalities and WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange are all under the guise of uncompromised integrity in journalism. Yeah, it's something that Bellingcat integrity in journalism, and they don't quite understand what that is. Even smeared Jimmy Dorlock for winning an award. He won an award for getting the story that Bellingcat got wrong on purpose. He won an award getting, I think it was $2,500. There you go, $2,500. As I mentioned at the time, that would keep Jimmy Dore in hair dye for about 6 months. But Bellingcat smeared him and said, basically, this is why he's doing it, for money. He's in the pocket of Big Peace. That's what they do. That's who Bellingcat are. They're propagandists for hire. And when they get things wrong, and when it's proven that they got things wrong, instead of saying, we're very sorry, we're honest actors here, we're trying to get things right, we were wrong about this, and actually with the new evidence that comes out from the OPCW whistleblowers, then yeah, it looks like that's what's happened and we'll work with you to get the truth here. No, they smeared the people who got that story right. What does that tell you about them? Right now, these people, Bellingcat, New York Times, Washington Post, who have lied to you systematically over the last 5 years about pretty much every major story, are right now screaming that Vladimir Putin has committed war crimes in Ukraine. Now, I don't know whether he has or not. I suspect both sides have, looking at what's coming out of there, the information. But I would just like to point out this to these propagandists like that guy up there and Bellingcat and the Washington Post and any journalists like Ken Delaney who are on the payroll of the CIA, let's face it. You're all screaming about war crimes, about something needs to be done, about Putin's war crimes. Whilst at the same time, the man who exposed our war crimes in the UK and the US and Australia and elsewhere, more than anybody else, more than any other publication, in fact, more than all other publications combined in their history, the man who was exposed those war crimes more than anybody, has been thrown in Belmarsh prison on remand for over 3 years, over 1,000 days, having been proven guilty of no crime whatsoever. In fact, he's not even in prison based on any crime whatsoever. He's on remand. We've thrown him in jail and are torturing him. He was arbitrarily detained for 7 years. He's basically had his liberty taken away for a decade because he told the truth about our war crimes, and now we're going around the world saying, oh, look at Putin, isn't he bad for doing this? Without any cast iron evidence that he's done it. We've locked up the guy who's exposed our war crimes and thrown away the key. What authority do we have anywhere in the world about any subject on anything if we're going to do that? Don't believe a word, not a single word that comes from this organisation. Not a word. It's a propaganda cutout that is there to manufacture consent for war. That's it. Its objective is not to get to the truth of anything. Its objective is to do whatever the National Endowment for Democracy and its other funders in the non-governmental organisation sphere, in other words, the NSA, CIA and FBI funded cutouts, for whatever they want. And what they want is to find Putin guilty of something, no matter what the facts are. That's not journalism. That's not fair. It's not even close to anything called democracy. You're a propagandist for hire. You're a liar for hire. If you work at that firm, you should hang your head in shame. Bellingcat with a company with a organisation that sprouted up. It was meant to be the intelligence service of the people. Yeah, the main guy, that main guy up there, I'm not even going to utter his name, the propagandist, that main guy up there in the corner, he's in an article with the New York Times, what he lists as his experience for doing this work is playing Call of Duty, playing video games. And somehow the media prop him and Bellingcat up as if they're the authority on all things chemical weapons and all things war crime. They're not. Not even close. Not authority in anything. They're the chemical weapons equivalent. They're the open source equivalent of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. That sounds like a wonderful organisation, doesn't it? The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Sounds like it's this saintly organisation in Syria that is listing all these human rights violations and goes around like the Red Cross investigating these things, doesn't it? Sounds like it's got boots on the ground. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, massive organisation. All of the media in this country cited them. The Telegraph, the BBC, the Guardian, the lot. They all cited the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights to say that, oh, Assad has done this and Assad has done that. Must be true, right? Because the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights told you. No, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is a geezer in Coventry, about 20 miles away from me up the road. A Syrian who lives in Coventry, who fled Syria because he was about to face trial for a fourth, I think, term, or third or fourth prison term, this time for fraud. He fled Syria, comes to the United Kingdom, gets a £197,000 grant for equipment, and then all of a sudden, he's the voice of every Syrian atrocity that goes on over there, every human rights violation in Syria. He's the guy who knows about it. But they don't call it a geezer in Coventry. They call it the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Same as they don't call this. They don't call this thing NGO cutout funded by National Endowment for Democracy, there to manufacture consent for war. No, they call it Bellingcat. We're belling the cat, so you know what the cat's up to. Well, I'll tell you what the cat's up to. The cat's up to trying to manufacture consent for war. You're a lying propagandist, mate. And you're disgusting. People who got that story right, you smeared. Hypocrite. Don't believe a goddamn word coming out of that organisation if it's got to do with anything, let alone with Ukraine. They do not what they do not. Their job is not to inform you. It's to misinform. All right. Went on a rant again, didn't I? Right, that was the only story I wanted to talk about today. There is something else that I'll get to in a minute when I find it. Hi everybody, how are you? Have a look at the GetX1 says neither am I an authority. It depends on what I'm an authority on, mate. What you mean I'm an authority on? If it's chemical weapons attacks, if it's possible war crimes in Ukraine, then at the moment, no, not an authority at all. But if it's what happened in Douma, I'm an authority on that. Just because of the amount of time I've investigated. Just go back and look at I've done about 20 videos on YouTube, hours. I'm an authority on Douma, mate. I just am. Sorry, buddy. Where is Belmarsh, says Holly Simone. It's in London. Yeah. Journalist is locked up in the middle of London. I'm going there, actually, in the next couple of days. I want to talk. Let's just get to the super chat. Monetisation. Mr. Methuselah says, I enjoy your shows. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Gene Jackson says, you need to upload more on YouTube. Right, here's the thing, Gene Jackson. I'm going to be uploading less. That's the truth. Let me show you something. I think I can show you this. Just want you to show you this. I think I can show you this. Can I? This is my analytics for YouTube. The reach I've got is nothing. If you're not subscribed to me on YouTube, you won't get my videos. YouTube don't show it anybody. I think the ratio of views on my channel on YouTube, if you're subscribed to unsubscribed, is something like 88%. Anybody else will be 40%. Because half the people who watch your stuff are subscribed to you, and half, it just comes up in playlists and what have you. I don't come up in playlists. There's no point in me uploading to YouTube other than for your convenience. You can just go to my website and get everything. You know what I mean? That's what I'm going to do more of now. You're going to have to go to my website, unfortunately. It'll be less I'm uploading to YouTube. I see no reason why I should upload to YouTube. I get no money from YouTube whatsoever. I turn off my advertising. I don't want advertising from YouTube. What's the point? They demonetize everything, all of my videos anyway, so I don't even want to have to go through the hoops to just get the pennies from a video that I would get. Remember, my videos rarely get over 1,000 views on YouTube. Can you believe that, TikTokers? My videos on YouTube Rarely get over 1,000 views. How many do my views on TikTok get? How many views do I get on TikTok? You know? Why should I bother? I understand for you, Gene. I really appreciate the money. I do. Thank you very much. But I'm banging my head up against a brick wall, aren't I? This is one of the reasons why I publish to multiple platforms now, because I can't put all my eggs in the YouTube basket. They'll delete my channel sooner or later anyway. So in future, it's going to be my website. Go to TikTok, register on TikTok, and follow me on there. My views get millions on TikTok. My most popular video on TikTok has got nearly 3 million views. On YouTube, it's not 100,000. And I think that on YouTube, it's 100,000. And I think that was the second or third video I did. I haven't got close to it since. They switch me off. If you are talking the truth on YouTube, they switch you off. I got to 18,000 subscribers. I got a letter from Julian Assange, and since then I haven't increased but a 1. I've done 4 times the amount of videos that I had on the channel since then, and I haven't got above 18,100 subscribers. What does that tell you about them? No, I'm not going to upload more to YouTube. I'm sorry, Gene, I'm not. They really did screw me. You've got to understand the mental anguish that... I don't want to talk too much about that, because obviously there's other people who are in much harder conditions, but it's not good for your mental health. It really isn't. Mary Scary says, we need more out here from people like you, Gordon. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. JSEO25 says, why do you repeat false Russian propaganda? JSEO25, what false Russian propaganda are you talking about? Because I don't know whether you know this, but propaganda doesn't have to be false. Why are we being bombed all the time by foreign governments? Oh, we're not. Bless our security, says JSEO25. No, we're not, but we're bombing other countries, aren't we? 7 countries in 2016 were bombed by America with our, with us there on their coattails and what have you. Why are you so up the establishment's ass, JSEO? Eh? That's strange, isn't it? Do I support Russia? No. No, I don't. So funny when people do that. It's like, I'm out here trying to give you the truth and you're saying, oh, it's Russian propaganda. Mate, listen to me, buddy. JSEO25 in the chat I'm talking to, alright? Just listen to me, mate. Please, take some advice. Have you ever heard of Plato's Cave? Go to Google, yeah? Type Plato's Cave and have a read of it. Might explain your mentality, mate. I'm not having a go at you. I'm trying to help you. Go on. You done it yet, JSEO? Plato's Cave. Have you typed it in? Plato's Cave? Have a read? Anybody who's in my chat calling Assange a criminal, yeah, they need everybody else to come down on him and say, "Oi, what's the matter with you? Are you doing that just to get attention, mate? Are you saying these things just so my eye will get drawn to you?" I think you are. Joan Robson, I've been giving you a small donation every month for a while and you're worth it. Thanks very much. Will you be there next Wednesday for Assange? Don't know what the next Wednesday one is. I will be there the weekend. Let me find it. God damn my computer. Monday the 11th of April. London, Tulsa, Washington, Brussels, Wellington, Sydney, Toronto. The March for Assange. Be there. I think, is it the 11th or is it? I thought it was Saturday. If it's the 11th, I've really screwed up because I've bought my ticket for tomorrow. Yeah, it's all right. There's one on Sunday. Yeah. There's one on Sunday as well. Sunday the 10th of April. 10:30 till 12 p.m. at the Ecuadorian Embassy. 12:30 till 2 at Westminster Magistrates Court. 4 to 5 p.m. at Belmarsh. Yeah, come out and show your support for the free press and the free media. JSEO, he didn't commit criminal acts, mate. He hasn't committed criminal acts at all. Please, please listen. Go and watch my videos on Assange on my site. He hasn't committed any criminal acts. He didn't hack anything. Okay, the hacking charge was false. A guy called Siggy Thordarson who made up the lies so he would get immunity from the FBI. Yeah, that's where the hacking thing came from. It was lies. Go and look at the stunning article with Siggy Thordarson. Okay? And if you're sitting there going, oh, it's a crime to release classified material like that. No, it's not. He's a journalist. You can release classified information, which he did do. They redacted it all. All of that was rubbish that you heard. And also, you can't classify a war crime. All right? I'm serious now. Go on. Go and look. Do your research. You support him for publishing. You're saying he committed crimes. What crimes did he do? What crimes? Rubbish that you're saying right now. You support WikiLeaks, really? What crimes did Julian Assange do? Jumping bail. Okay, so he should be in prison for 3 years for that, should he? All right, he got the maximum price, the maximum for that. He could get 50 weeks, and he did the entire 50 weeks. He's been there over 1,000 days. How much more would you like him tortured? Would you like thrown in jail for 3 years for jumping bail? That jumping bail, the maximum sentence, is meant to be for people who've jumped bail continuously to make sure that they're kept behind bars and don't do it again. He'd never jumped bail before. The rules are you are released halfway through that sentence when you're on bail. He wasn't. He was kept the maximum 50 weeks and has been there for over 1,000 days ever since. What are you talking about? What crimes did he do? No, there's no confusion of the facts. You're saying that he's committed crimes. What crime? What crime is he in Belmarsh for right now? Come on. You come to my channel, you say that I'm full of bullshit and you say I'm not an authority on stuff. What crimes did he do, pal? I'm sick of people like you. I'm sick of you. You're repeating propaganda bullshit that you've been told by people that you know have lied to you over and over all of your life, and then you carry on repeating their bullshit. You said that he committed crimes, pal. What crimes? 10 years he's been detained. 10 years. What crime did he commit to have 10 years detained? What crime he jumped bail, so he should get 10 years for jumping bail. And why did he jump bail, by the way? Why did he jump bail? That's right, he jumped bail, as you call it, because he said that it was a ruse to get him into custody because there was a sealed indictment in America, which meant that they were going to extradite him to America. It was just a ruse to get him into custody. And guess what happened? Oh, that's right. As soon as he was in custody, that sealed indictment was unsealed. And the investigation in Sweden that he jumped bail for was finished, was kaput. It was quashed straight away. Opened and closed more times than the fridge door. And you're sitting there and you're saying he jumped bail as if he should be in prison. This man who exposed war crimes. Exposed the war crimes done in your name. What is the matter with you, pal? Goddamn got Stockholm syndrome, man. And he says he supports WikiLeaks, that guy. You're a joke, mate. Fucking, you tell me I'm not an authority on stuff. Just go and look at some of the stuff I've done over the last 5 years, mate. All right. I'm sorry, mate. It's like when you've got idiots like that, just over and over again in the chat, repeating bollocks. As soon as you go, okay, what crime? Jumping bail. So, right, okay, so we should be in prison for... No. What crime then? Jumping bail. So we should be in prison then. And why did he jump bail? It just falls flat. Idiot. All right. Be there the weekend. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to get off. As you can see, my blood pressure's gone up. I'm going to, on Sunday, to this march for Assange. Okay? Please go if you can. The details are on Amy Butlin's page on Twitter. wiseupaction.info. When I go there, right, and when I'm outside, I've been outside Belmarsh lots of times on marches and protests and covering events. When you're outside there, right, you're arm in arm with, I'm not kidding you, the best people on the planet. You're linking arms with people who know what the truth is. You're linking arms with people who sought out the truth. They didn't listen to the bullshit like that guy in the chat just. They sought out the truth, right? These are people who were standing up for democracy and standing up for the free press and standing up for truth. And when we're outside Belmarsh or the Ecuadorian embassy or anywhere in the past, you know, the Royal Courts of Justice, Westminster Magistrates, wherever it is we've been, the police treat us like we're the criminals. Do you understand what I mean? We're out there, outside Belmarsh, outside Westminster Magistrates Court, the Royal Courts of Justice, Ecuadorian Embassy. We've been there for 5 years, some of us for 10 years before that. You know, I was late to the game almost. I've only been doing it 4 or 5 years. But we're standing up for truth, for justice, for democracy, for the fourth estate, for a free press. We're standing up for all the things that people stand for. And the police at every event treat us like we're the criminals. When you've got people in the chat like that who are saying they're supporting WikiLeaks, but saying, oh, he jumped bail, he committed crimes, who repeats the propaganda, the nonsense spoken about Julian for a decade of lies told about him. It's really disheartening. It's really disheartening. Because I've screamed and I've shouted about this now for years. This is my country doing this. This is not China. This is not North Korea, and it's not Russia, who are silencing a journalist for telling the truth and torturing him. That's not my words. That's the words of the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture. See you, mate. Pissed me off once too much, that guy is. But we're the ones who've done it. He's committed no crime. No crime whatsoever has he committed. The jumping bail charge that JSCO25 guy in the chat, who I've just blocked, by the way, is talking about. He's talking about something that was a ruse to get him into custody so they could unseal the indictment in America and get him sent over there. They weaponized a charge of sexual misconduct. They weaponized it. Put all their resources into flying all around the world to try and get this thing done. Meanwhile, like 1 in 70 rapists actually faces jail in this country. They don't want to know. If you've got raped in this country, they don't want to know. They want to look at the figures. 1 in 70 faces any sort of prison term or faces a guilty verdict. 1 in 70. Meanwhile, the Met just absolutely as much resources as possible was just thrown at this to just try and make something stick so they could get him in custody so they could extradite him to America, where he faces certain death. It's not 175 years in prison he faces, it's certain death. And why? By the way, why have we done that? Why have we put him in jail? Why did we? Oh, well, that's it. Because he published the truth that proved proved we were war criminals and our leaders had committed war crimes. And for that, he didn't get an award. He didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize like he has been nominated for a decade. No. He got dragged out of his political asylum in an act of fascism, thrown in our version of Guantanamo Bay, had his glasses taken from him, was thrown in solitary confinement, was talking about committing suicide 20, 30 times a day because of the situation we was in. We didn't give him even access to a library. In his letter to me, he talked about how he didn't even get access to the library. He was talking in his letter to me how they wouldn't give him his laptop. Eventually they gave him his laptop, but they glued all the keys down on the keyboard. We did that. The UK did that. Not North Korea, not Russia, not China. We did it. Why? Because he told the truth about our crimes. And when we go this weekend to protest that, the police will treat us like we're the criminals. Acting like rabid dogs if we put one foot in a road that we shouldn't be. Oh, your foot's in the road, move out the road. They should be on their knees thanking us that we haven't given up. They should be on their knees thanking us that we're the ones sticking up for justice and truth and the fourth estate and democracy in this country. They should be, but they treat us like criminals. If you're the policeman, if you're in the police at one of these events and you're looking at the people in front of you and you want to know who the criminals are, turn around, mate. Look behind you. They're the ones paying your wages. And by the way, things not too good for the economy at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if they steal your pensions when it comes down to it, too. And if that happens, and they do cast you out, you haven't got a job anymore, and your pension's gone, we'll remember that. And we'll remember how you treated us like we were the criminals when we were the ones standing up for truth, justice, and liberty, and you were the ones doing the bidding of monsters who hate those things. Not a single person, not a single person who Epstein got in his web, not a single person that Epstein and Maxwell filmed as they, raped children and kids. Not a single person has been arrested. Not one. But we're the criminals. When we go on a march for Assange, when we go on a march for the truth, we're the ones who get treated like criminals, and the people who Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein got involved in their honeypot, and that's just one. Let's face it, these people, they're protecting paedophiles whilst pointing the finger at us who were protesting them, thinking that we're the criminals. Is it any wonder that that happens when you've got people like that in the chat going, I support WikiLeaks, but, you know, Julian Assange belongs in jail? All right. Did you get arrested on said march? I've nearly got arrested multiple times over the last few years. I've always managed to just know where the line is there. Most deaths in the Iraq war were self-inflicted, not the West, says Gregor McIntosh. No, it's not true, mate. That's rubbish. 1 million people were killed by sanctions. That's not self-inflicted. Oh, I should have known. Somebody just come in the chat and said Assange is a Russian asset. Mate, seriously. Get your head from up your ass. Alright, everybody, I'm going to go. I think that's everything. Stay strong, Gordon. Smoke a little C. It's good for the blood pressure. I will, Joe. Don't you worry. That's exactly what I'm going to do as soon as I finish this live. Alright, everybody, I'm off. Thank you very much if you thank you very much for your support during this very trying time. Go through to my website, sign up to my mailing list if you haven't already. I don't know how long I'm going to have these avenues to talk to you on, so we do need a direct line of a direct line to converse with, because honestly I don't know how long I'm going to be on these platforms. YouTube have cut the legs from under me, so I mean I can speak on YouTube, but I'm pretty much speaking to the same 100 people every day, and on TikTok I have reach, but it's pretty obvious that they're going to ban me very soon because they won't even talk to me about stuff. It's kind of hilarious. But Gregor McIntosh says, let's talk about Russian war crimes in Ukraine. You should go to my YouTube, Gregor McIntosh, and you should look at the... you should rewind this stream and actually look, because that's what we were talking about at the beginning of this. We were talking about Russian war crimes in Ukraine. Very beginning of this. You should go back and watch it. I'll give you some backstory into the people talking about the Russian war crimes in Ukraine. A company called Bellingcat. Not to be trusted, pal. But hey, doesn't matter. You're not here for anything constructive, are you? I can tell. All right, I'm out, everybody. Thank you very much for all your support. I'll be back probably Monday, Tuesday now. So I shall publish something from the March the weekend. Take care, everybody. I love you. Support independent media. Free Julian Assange. Take care. All right, everybody. My YouTube is the same as my name, Gordon Dimmack. You'll just be, if you go to my face on this on TikTok and my page, you'll have the